Yeah, so this is the remains of an Epson laser colour printer, which I picked up at the tip shop for about 10 bucks, and thought I'd take it apart and see what sort of stuff I got out of it. Now, I'm pretty pleased with this one. The last laser printer I took apart only had a couple of basic motors, and all of the driving of the paper rollers was done by gears inside. But it looks like these guys have gone to a slightly different tack, and there are motors for Africa. So I've got, this is the main one that drove the main paper roller. It's got this nice beefy dog clutch on it, big flywheel on the back, and a nice gearbox in there. So that should be interesting to take apart when I get round to it. And we've got this one, which has got one of these motors on it. I think it's a stepper. There's a few I got, here we go, there's one identical that doesn't have all the stuff on it, and if I move it with my fingers I can just feel little steps in it, and the fact that it's got 6 wires makes me think they probably are. So I've got, you see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, 2 of which came with gearboxes. This one's kind of interesting. It'll let the wheel spin freely in that direction, but it's driven in the other. So obviously it'll be the reverse when it's driven by the motor, but yeah, freewheels very freely that way. And then there's this, which is attached to the side of it. It's only got 2 wires going into it, but based on, so I got a few of them. These came out basically the same unit if I compare it, and this one was sitting on the end of a shaft, and this piece on the end just spins freely. The bit in the middle actually has a small D on it, which was attached to the shaft. That also spins freely of the gear. So they both spin free, and then it's got this little locating thing here to keep it from spinning around itself. So I think it's some sort of encoder, but it's only got 2 wires, so I'll be interested to play with that, put it on the oscilloscope and see what comes out of it when I give it a turn. But this one will be a bit easier because it's actually attached and everything's still in place there. So these are obviously supposed to work together, moving it to one way, and then this telling it where it's gone to. What else have we got? Oh, another little motor here, which looks like this piece, big plastic bit on the end, is actually a gearbox, because this is very difficult to turn from here. There's a little bit of play in it, but yeah, that's geared quite significantly. 3 wires on that one, so not quite sure how to drive it. I'm sure we'll find out. I pulled this out because that gear on there, this helical gear, fits exactly with the brass helical gear on the end of these, so that may come in useful. Not sure, we'll find out. So yeah, I've got a few of those, 2 of those little encoders, another gearbox, gear arrangement here, which has got some pretty decent size. So there's the little helical that goes on there, and there's the mount there which will fit one of these motors. It spins all those around. Not sure if I'll use that, but I just thought I'd keep it anyway. What else have we got? Oh, another little set of transfer gears, again with the helical end that goes with those, and a nice big chunky one on the end here, which I might actually be able to 3D print something that'll match up with that. A million screws. Switches, so tons of these tiny little micro switches, which are always pretty useful if you're doing robotics and stuff like that, and a bunch of these as well, which they don't have quite as positive an action as the micro switches, but they're definitely found in places where they would be their switches. This is a little, so these are the ones that watch the paper go through. There's an LED sender and receiver on there, and I kept this one's little mounting bracket because it looks quite useful, but got quite a few of those. Another one with a bracket on it. What else did I get? Oh yes, this dinky little solenoid. So that's got a little plate that comes down onto there, and then a little return spring, so it springs back again. A couple of little wires. These I'm quite pleased with. So what I found normally in printers is quite often the shafts in the end, instead of having proper bearings, they just go into the hard plastic of the body of the thing itself, and so there's very rarely any retrievable bearings from them. But these were holding in the the toner unit. So the bearings were actually in the end of the toner, and then the holder, which has got a little machine shaft on it, was bolted into the side of the printer. So yeah, got a nice little matched pair there of little bearings on a shaft. Some of the machine shafts that came out of it, I often keep those. This is very solid. I'm not entirely sure what I'll use them for, but who knows, they may end up being thrown out. And then this is what, these two bits in fact. So that's the laser unit. I haven't taken that apart yet. What I'll probably, from experience, find in here, there will be, the laser probably shoots in from one end, and then there's a mirrored plate that sits along here that tilts and, oh actually I'm not sure if it tilts, but it pushes the laser out that way anyway. So that's all in one piece at the moment, but I'm hoping to retrieve a nice laser diode from there. And then the other part, this is the driver board with two very cute little flyback transformers on it, which those will be the develop the high voltage for the laser. So quite looking forward to having a play with those. Don't know if they still work or not. The chances of these being damaged is quite low. I don't know why it was at the tip. Who knows? Probably they couldn't afford to replace the toner, because that's the thing with these printers these days. So yeah, that's my nice little haul. Quite a few motors, a lot more motors than I was expecting, which is very pleasing. A ton of switches, which is quite pleasing because I'm doing a bit of robotics at the moment. I need to build some bumper bars for ButtBot and so forth, so having those kind of switches would be good. Oh, here's another one that would actually surprise me. It's, what I can tell, it's a tiny little current transformer. So we've got a coil on there, two wires off, and it's sat around the end of one of the shafts, which was a bit odd. So I don't know, maybe this current goes through the shafts, it provides a path for something, but yeah, dinky little current transformer. All in all, not bad for $10.